This part of the English Midlands has been making cheese from milk produced by these rich pastures for centuries. But the local blue vein cheese only became generally known as Stilton early in the 18th century. It's said that a blue-veined cream cheese made from cow's milk was first produced by the farmers of the village of Wymondham in Leicestershire. This very building is credited as the birthplace of Stilton, and a carving on the wall celebrates the fact. The village is in the heart of the rich dairy country of the Vale of Belvoir, so there's always been plenty of milk here for cheese making, and it takes all of 21 US gallons, or nearly 78 litres, to make a single prime Stilton cheese.
The Vale of Belvoir is renowned for growing good grass, and we like to think that we can grow grass as well as anybody else and produce the right quality milk for making good quality Stilton cheese.
Today Stilton cheese is made only in the English Midlands, from milk from the three counties of Nottinghamshire, Leicestershire and Derbyshire, and only 7 dairies are allowed to produce Stilton cheese. Our cheese takes its famous name from the town of Stilton in Cambridgeshire, although it's never actually been made here. It was actually made further north near Melton Mowbray. The town of Stilton, 70 miles north of London, in the old days was a convenient stopover for coaches and horses making the long and tiring journey between London and the north.
They travelled up and down the Great North Road, which is 2 miles east of where I'm standing talking here in the front of Wymondham Church. It was very, very simple to sell cheese in what was the great area, market town, to London, coming north on the A1, which was Stilton. And that is where the markets were set up. It was a market town trading. So they sold cheese there. People who came there, they wanted the blue vein cheese, the cheese of Stilton.
Daniel Defoe, the writer and traveller, favourably mentioned the cheese when he visited the town in the early 1700s. Defoe had stayed at the Bell Inn, one of Stilton's busy coaching inns. It's still here today, although much quieter than when Defoe and the stagecoaches stopped here.
At the time of the height of the coaching trade, there were a minimum of 300 horses held at the Bell, 300 horses a minimum held at the Angel Offerer. There were another 14 pubs which all had horses. I think you must have been ankle deep in dung.
It was a busy place with a thriving cheese market in the street outside. The man who spotted the potential of this trade in cheese was a man called Cooper Thornhill. A well-known horseman and entrepreneur, he successfully sold vast amounts of it to passing travellers. He was the man who really developed the trade in Stilton cheese. Today he's buried in the churchyard at Stilton, just a short walk away from the inn he once owned. Most of his cheeses were made by a cheesemaker called Francis Powlett, who lived in the village of Wymondham, 35 miles to the northwest of Stilton. Her home still stands today, and she's said to be the first cheesemaker to make Stilton to a uniform high standard. Her great innovation was to make the cheese in ceramic pipes or cylinders with holes in them, where the unpressed cheese could drain and then mature. We still use a similar technique today. Stilton isn't pressed, and plastic cylinders are used to give the cheese an open texture and its characteristic barrel shape.
She was the first, because there's no evidence, and I've spent half a lifetime chasing it, of any reference that it was ever made anywhere else in this country other than in this village at that early stage.
Francis Powlett set the standard other cheesemakers had to meet for blue cream cheese to be good enough to be marketed as Stilton. Today, the person who did more than any other to give Stilton its shape and quality lies close by the home where she made her famous cheeses. Together with Cooper Thornhill, she helped develop a huge trade in quality Stilton cheese. For the town of Stilton itself, the coming of the railways in the 19th century finished the town as a major thoroughfare and marketplace for Stilton cheese.
When the East Midland Rail line opened, that killed the coach trade. instantly, within weeks, it collapsed. And of course then it moved to the market town in Leicestershire, which was now the predominant area for making cheeses.
And that market town was Melton Mowbray, where most of the dairies now making Stilton cheese are still working thereabouts, although the town's traditional weekly cheese markets are long gone. Until the turn of the 19th century, most cheeses were made in the summer months when milk was plentiful and matured in time for Christmas, which is why Stilton is so strongly associated with the festive season in Britain. But now it's a consistently high-quality, all-year-round cheese, thanks partly to the coming together of local farmers just before World War I in cooperatives to improve production methods and efficiency.
We're on very heavy clay land in, down in the Vale here, and I think it grows grass pretty well all year round, and I think that's been the secret.
In 1936, the Stilton Cheesemakers Association was formed to further the aims of the Stilton makers and to raise standards. Stilton is a protected name thanks to its certification trademark and can only be made in the counties of Nottinghamshire, Leicestershire and Derbyshire. This guarantees that it's only made in the time-honoured way in this small corner of England from locally produced milk. And in 1996 the European Union granted Stilton protected designation of origin status, further strengthening Stilton's good name throughout Europe. And today Stilton is as much a part of good eating as it ever was, and not just as a tasty end to a good meal, but as a perfect accompaniment to anything from pasta and soup to sorbets and ice cream. So the cheese that Cooper Thornhill and Francis Paulet first sold to passing travellers is still enjoyed in more than 50 countries across the world, where quality and taste is truly valued.
It's got flavour, taste, body. You don't get that in any other cheese, I'm sorry. You know, you can have your Roquefort if you like, but it isn't a comparison really. There is only one cheese. The king of cheese, Stilton cheese.
It takes 21 US gallons or nearly 78 litres of rich cream milk to make a prime Stilton cheese, and the whole business starts here early every morning.
The standard process is we pasteurise the raw milk, and the pasteurised milk comes into the vat. We add the starter culture, which is cocktail-friendly bacteria, and we also add the penicillium roqueforti, the blue mould, at the milk stage as well.
This dairy produces about 400 cheeses a day, and the Stilton dairies sell 1 million quality cheeses a year throughout the world. Clearly, good hygiene is essential with any dairy product, and great care is taken at every stage of the Stilton cheese-making process.
We test every tanker of milk for antibiotics, for fusion point to make sure there's no water contamination, and we test it for reazorin to make sure it's fresh. We take every precaution to make sure our cheese is safe for the end user to eat. We test all our cheese to maintain high standards. We test for salts, moisture, fats, pH, every single vat, at 1 day and 5 days, and again at grading at 8 weeks old.
And we also test each batch of cheeses before they're sold to be sure they meet strict European Union standards. The cheese room, where the process of turning milk into fine cheese begins, is kept at a constant warm temperature and free from any contamination, so that the starter cultures can be introduced in a controlled way.
Put into English, basically it's a cocktail-friendly bacteria which gives you sort of flavour and